They laughed when I said I was homeless, but then I showed up to the reunion in a helicopter. I wasn't always invisible. Once upon a time, I thought the world could see me. That if I worked hard enough, stayed kind enough, and dreamed big enough, life would reward me. That illusion shattered the first time I realized there were rules in this world, unspoken, brutal rules, and I was born on the losing side of every single one. I grew up in Ridgeville, a picturesque, upper middle class town where status was everything and high school was the training ground for future CEOs, doctors, and trust fund royalty. My mother, bless her soul, was a waitress at a 24-hour diner, and my father walked out when I was 6. We lived in a cramped one-bedroom apartment above a dry cleaner. Our walls were so thin I could hear every argument next door, every scream, every sob. My childhood lullaby was the hum of broken pipes and the clatter of plates at the restaurant below. But even then, I had hope. A blinding, stubborn kind of hope that I clung to like a life raft. I was smart, not just gets good grade smart, but built websites from library book smart. I taught myself HTML when I was 12. By 14, I had a portfolio of websites I created for imaginary companies. My notebooks were filled with startup ideas, algorithms, diagrams of things that didn't even exist yet. But in Ridgeville High, being brilliant wasn't enough. Not when you couldn't afford the right shoes. Not when your lunch came in a plastic grocery bag. Not when your mom dropped you off in a rusted-out Honda with a different colored door. They laughed at me, not once, not twice, but constantly. The they I'm talking about? The beautiful, cruel elite of Ridgeville. The ones with gleaming smiles and polished Instagram lives. Jason Tiller, captain of the lacrosse team, son of a venture capitalist. Madison Blake, head cheerleader, whose father owned half the strip malls in town. Tyler, Emma, Zach, Lauren, they all traveled in the same shimmering pack, and I was the shadow they pretended not to see. But the worst was how they weaponized kindness. Fake compliments followed by snickers. Invitations that were jokes in disguise. "Oh, Adam, we totally forgot to save you a seat," with smirks they didn't even bother hiding. And when I tried to talk about my ambitions, when I dared to say I wanted to start a company one day, to build tech that changed lives, they laughed in my face. Startups don't come out of trailer parks, Whitman. Let us know when you're a billionaire. Maybe then you can afford deodorant. You? Homeless genius? What, are you gonna code from a cardboard box? Every word was a dagger. But I never let them see me bleed. By senior year, I had stopped talking to people altogether. I buried myself in schoolwork. I volunteered for extra projects just to use the school computers. I read every tech blog I could find. I watched TED Talks in the back of the library with headphones that only worked in one ear. My mother. She believed in me. She'd come home exhausted after 10-hour shifts, reeking of coffee and bacon grease, but she'd sit at the foot of my bed and listen to me explain my latest idea like it was magic. "You're going to build something great, baby," she'd whisper. "You're going to show them all." But she never got to see it. 2 months before graduation, she collapsed in the diner bathroom. Stroke. Too fast, too sudden. She was gone before I even got to the hospital. She died with $58 in her checking account. That night, I graduated from poor to destitute. No parents, no college fund, no relatives who gave a damn. I pawned her wedding ring for rent, took 3 part-time jobs. But life, as always, had other plans. The car broke down. I got evicted. I slept in shelters, on benches, in gas station bathrooms. There were nights I didn't eat. Nights I cried so hard I thought my lungs would collapse. Nights I stared at my reflection in a convenience store window and didn't recognize the man looking back. They called me homeless. But I called myself not finished. Even in the darkest months, I kept working. I'd sneak into the public library every morning and sit at the same cracked computer with sticky keys and a flickering screen. I watched free YouTube tutorials on JavaScript, Python, React. I built apps no one saw. I wrote code like my life depended on it, because it did. One day, I uploaded a simple productivity app I'd made to a small online community. I expected nothing, but someone shared it. Then someone else. Within a week, it had 10,000 downloads. then 50,000. Then a tech blog picked it up. That's when he called. Jared Lin, a mid-tier tech investor from San Francisco. Your code is rough, he said, but your concept is gold. I pitched him from a public library cubicle with a cracked phone camera. He invested $100,000. That day, I bought a second-hand laptop, a room to sleep in, and a new pair of shoes. And I built. I didn't stop for 2 years. 2 years of sleepless nights, trial and error, rejection after rejection, until the product became something real. Something scalable. Something profitable. By the time I was 29, I was the CEO of a tech platform with 11 million users, 2 rounds of funding, and offices in 3 countries. And then, one sunny Wednesday, an email slid into my inbox. Subject: Ridgeville High, 10-year reunion. Location: Ridgeville Country Club. Attire: black tie. Date: November 12th. Oh, how poetic. I RSVP'd yes within 5 minutes. And I knew exactly how I was going to arrive. People think bullying ends when high school does, that once you throw your graduation cap in the air, everything that happened before just disappears into the past. They're wrong. The things they said to me at 17 still echo in my head like they happened yesterday. But betrayal isn't always just about cruel words. Sometimes it's about silence. About watching someone suffer and turning away. About seeing a person drowning and choosing to laugh instead of reach. When the reunion date grew closer, I couldn't stop thinking about all of them, the ones who made my life hell, not just for a year or two, but for all of it. Jason Tiller. He was the golden boy, captain of every team, beloved by every teacher. But he had a mean streak as sharp as a knife. He used to pin me against the lockers and whisper threats into my ear while everyone else walked by, pretending not to see. And when I once brought in a school project on entrepreneurship, a whole mock startup pitch I worked on for weeks, he stood up in the middle of my presentation and said, "This isn't Shark Tank, Whitman. No one's investing in your poor kid fantasy." Everyone laughed. Even the teacher. She didn't stop him. No one ever did. Then there was Madison Blake, Ridgeville's queen bee. She had this false kindness, the kind that's more dangerous than open cruelty. She once asked me to tutor her as a favor, saying she needed help with calculus. I thought maybe, for once, someone saw me. That maybe I wasn't completely invisible. But a week later, she posted screenshots of our text messages in a group chat with the caption, "I asked the janitor for math help." They forwarded it. Laughed. Dozens of them. I didn't leave my room for 3 days. I remember sitting at my mother's grave that week, asking her why I was still trying. Why I hadn't given up. But even worse than their laughter was the silence from people who could have helped. Like Tyler Grant. He and I had been friends back in elementary school. We used to trade Pokemon cards, build Lego cities, and dream about getting out of Ridgeville. But when middle school hit and Tyler started getting invited to parties, everything changed. He stopped talking to me. He wouldn't even make eye contact in the halls. I became radioactive. He laughed at their jokes about me. Sometimes, he even joined in. I confronted him once, asking why, and he just shrugged. "You're not good for my image, man. It's not personal." Not personal. I carried that phrase for years like a stone in my chest. When I became homeless, not a single one of them checked in. Not one. I posted once, just once, on Facebook during a moment of weakness, a blurry picture of the rain outside the shelter and a caption that read, "Rock bottom is colder than I thought." All I got were emojis. Laughing faces. Comments like, "Should have paid more attention in gym class, Adam." From honor roll to hobo. "Guess you finally found your place outside." I deleted the post. And my account. It wasn't just teasing anymore. It was cruelty. Pack mentality. A high school hierarchy that followed me into adult life and spit on me while I lay in the mud. And now? Now they were all gathering at the country club where I wasn't allowed to set foot as a teenager. The same club that threw my application in the trash when I tried to apply for a dishwasher job at 16. They were coming in suits and gowns. Polished, successful, self-satisfied. I knew how this would go. Jason would brag about his real estate empire. Madison would flaunt her influencer career. Tyler would talk about his MBA. They'd drink wine and smile politely. And when I walked in alone, no titles, no degrees, no LinkedIn flex, they'd whisper behind their champagne flutes. Didn't he used to be homeless? I could already hear the laughter in their throats. And that's when I made a decision. I wasn't going there to be part of their world again. I was going to burn it down. The moment I made the decision to go, really go, to the reunion, not as the broken boy they remembered, but as something else entirely. I felt something inside me settle. Not peace. Not relief. But purpose. I was going to face them. And I wasn't going to hide what they did to me. I was going to show them what a homeless loser became while they were too busy laughing. But this wasn't going to be petty. It wasn't about flexing money or rubbing their noses in my success. Not exactly. That would be too small. Too shallow. No. This was about power. They needed to feel it, not just see a new car or a watch and think I got lucky. They needed to sit in the presence of everything they underestimated and realize it all came from the very scars they left. So I began planning, not just an appearance, but a performance. First, the arrival. A black car? Too common. A limo? Too desperate. I wanted silence before the storm, a moment of complete disbelief that would shatter the cocktail chatter into stunned silence. A helicopter. Not rented, not borrowed, owned. My company had acquired a small drone logistics startup a few months earlier. I upgraded their transport chopper for private use. My legal team thought I was out of my mind. But I had a reunion to attend. I called the Ridgeville Country Club, the same club that once threw out my mother when she dared ask about catering prices for my non-existent graduation party. I told them I'd need clearance to land a helicopter on the far lawn before the event. The manager sputtered. "I'm sorry, who is this?" "Adam Whitman." A pause. Then silence. I smiled. They knew the name now. While the logistics were being handled, I turned my attention to the second piece of the plan, what I'd wear. Sounds trivial, right? But not to them. In Ridgeville, what you wore said everything. That's why they mocked my thrift store sneakers, my oversized winter coats, my duct tape backpack. I flew to Milan. Yes, Milan. I didn't need to. I could have ordered something online. But I wanted to do it right. I met with a private tailor who crafted pieces for royal families and global CEOs. I told him I needed a suit that said, "I remember everything you did, and I won." He called it Vengeance in Velvet. Jet black, subtle satin lapel, custom embroidery on the inside pocket that read, "Rock Bottom" was the foundation. Next was the guest list. I didn't want to show up alone, not because I needed a date, but because I wanted presence. Power magnifies when it enters with grace. I brought my coup, Anya Malik. Brilliant, fearless, dressed in red. She knew my story. She lived parts of it herself. We didn't speak on the flight there. We didn't need to. She just looked at me midair and said, "Ready to hunt their dreams?" I nodded. As we flew over Ridgeville for the first time in 10 years, I saw it below me, small, polished, and still so proud of itself. The same football field. The same rows of pristine houses. The same country club with the white pillars and manicured lawns. Where I once stood outside during winter, hoping someone would sneak me leftovers from a wedding buffet. Now I was descending from the sky, blades slicing the air above their heads. The reunion was scheduled to begin at 7 p.m. We landed at 7:42. Late. On purpose. A valet came running toward the lawn in confusion, shielding his eyes from the rotor wash. Then he froze, realizing someone was stepping out. Then two. Me, in black. Anya, in red. Silhouetted by a storm of wind and light. We walked up the back steps as the crowd inside stirred. The music stopped. A curtain fluttered. Heads turned. I watched as Madison Blake's champagne glass slipped from her hand. Jason Tiller dropped his phone. Tyler choked on his hors d'oeuvre. And then, silence. Complete, perfect silence. They saw me, not as the stray dog they once kicked, but as something else entirely. and I hadn't even spoken yet. Every step I took through the marble-floored banquet hall was like walking through a memory, except this time, I was in control. The lights seemed dimmer, the air thicker, every laugh more forced. It was as if my presence had sucked the comfort right out of the room. The room split like the Red Sea. People moved aside instinctively, some with curiosity, others with fear. But none with the mockery they used to carry like perfume. I stopped in the center of the ballroom. Let them look. Let them remember. Let their minds rush back to that boy they laughed at. The one with shoes too tight, dreams too big, and no one to sit with at lunch. The event planner approached, visibly confused. Are you on the list? Anya stepped forward, her voice like ice. He is the list. I walked to the open bar, ordered sparkling water, just water, no pretense, and turned slowly to face the crowd. I didn't need a microphone. I didn't even need to raise my voice. The silence was doing all the work for me. Then Jason Tiller, good old Jason, tried to break it. Whitman? He said with a forced chuckle, adjusting his Rolex like that still meant something. Is that really you, man? I almost didn't recognize you. What have you been up to? Still coding in trash cans? Laughter rippled. Thin, nervous. I smiled. Not wide, just enough. Actually, Jason, I bought the company that owns your mortgage. About 6 months ago. The blood drained from his face. I stepped closer. I've seen your file, over-leveraged, too much debt. That new house in Bayside? Might want to refinance. He opened his mouth to say something, but nothing came out. Just a twitch in his jaw. A subtle gulp. And then, Madison Blake. She slinked forward in a shimmering silver dress, fake warmth melting into her voice like it had 10 years ago. Adam, she cooed. I always knew you'd do something big. I mean, I told people. I was like, he's quiet, but there's something special about him. I didn't even blink. Yeah, I said, voice calm. Was that before or after you sent my tutoring text to everyone with puke emojis? Her smile faltered. I continued, stepping closer. It's funny, Madison. You're trying to sell skincare on Instagram now, right? What's your engagement rate these days? Under 2%. Her face flushed. I acquired that brand you tag in your posts. I made a few calls yesterday. You'll be dropped as of Monday. But you can't. She started, breath catching. I just did. It wasn't rage. It wasn't yelling. It was surgical. I didn't need to destroy them. Just reveal what they really were, hollow, fragile, built on borrowed power and fragile pride. Then I turned to the crowd, the whole room, and said what I'd been waiting a decade to say. 10 years ago, you laughed when I said I was going to build something. When I said I didn't need to be rich to be worthy. You laughed when I lost my mom, when I became homeless, when I asked for help. You laughed because you thought I'd disappear. I stepped forward. But I didn't disappear. I looked toward the windows, where my helicopter still sat on the lawn, gleaming under the moonlight. I rebuilt myself from the dirt you shoved me into. And while you were busy mocking people like me, I was watching, learning, building. I paused, scanning their faces. Some looked ashamed, others stunned, a few angry. But none of them, not one, looked proud. I'm not here to ask for respect, I said. I'm here to return what you gave me. Silence again. Sharp. Heavy. Then I turned and walked out. I didn't stay for the group photo. Didn't shake hands. Didn't dance. I didn't need to. Because every single one of them would remember that night, the night the boy they laughed at came back from nothing, flying above them. Literally. We lifted off in silence. The blades of the helicopter whirred against the night sky, the lights of Ridgeville shrinking beneath us like a fading memory, distant, harmless, powerless. Anya sat across from me, her eyes still burning with adrenaline. Think they got the message? She asked, a smirk tugging at the corner of her mouth. I didn't answer. Because the truth was, the message wasn't for them. Not entirely. It was for the kid I used to be. The kid who slept in a train station bathroom because the shelter was full. The kid who ate sugar packets to silence the hunger. The kid who held his mother's cold hand and whispered promises he had no idea how to keep. I had fulfilled every one of those promises. But deep down, something was still unsettled. Revenge is satisfying, but it doesn't bring peace. Not really. A week after the reunion, I got an email from Ridgeville High. Subject line: "Your visit inspired us. Would you consider speaking to our students?" I almost deleted it. Almost. But something made me stop. Maybe it was the thought of another Adam, sitting alone in a classroom, and thinking no one saw him. Maybe it was the image of my mom, smiling from the diner booth, saying, "You're going to help people someday." So I said yes. I didn't take the helicopter. I drove. When I arrived, the school looked almost exactly the same. Same peeling lockers. Same flickering hallways. Same tiny auditorium with water-stained ceiling tiles. I stood on that stage, where I had once been mocked for my ideas, and looked out at a sea of students. Some distracted. Some curious. A few leaning forward with the same quiet hunger I used to feel. I told them everything. Not the Instagram version, the real story. The failures. The nights I thought about ending it all. The pain. The loneliness. And the long, slow, brutal climb. And when I finished, I said one last thing. Every person who laughed at me taught me something. They taught me what not to be. And every time I was told I didn't matter, I realized I did. Silence. Then, applause. Not polite applause. Not required applause. Real. That night, a student came up to me. Thin, nervous, maybe 14. He looked up at me with wide eyes and said, "They call me garbage here." My throat tightened. I bent down and whispered, "That's what they called me too." So I became the one who takes out the trash. He laughed, a real laugh. And I realized, in that moment, the revenge wasn't the helicopter. It wasn't the suit. It wasn't the silence in the ballroom. The real revenge was becoming unignorable. Not for them. For everyone else they tried to bury. Epilogue. 6 months later, Ridgeville High received a massive anonymous donation, enough to rebuild the library, fund scholarships for underprivileged students, and start a new STEM program. They renamed the building the Adam Whitman Innovation Center. Jason Tiller filed for bankruptcy that same year. Madison Blake faded into social media irrelevance. Tyler sent me a friend request. I ignored it. And me? I kept building. Not companies. Legacies. Because they laughed when I said I was homeless. But then I showed up to the reunion. In a helicopter. And they finally saw what I always knew. You can laugh at a dreamer, but never underestimate what he becomes once he wakes up.